There it goes.
There we go.
All right. Welcome, everyone. It's the first day of spring. And on the first day of spring, we have Andy Curran, bassist with Envy of None, to talk with us about Envy of None's debut album. So welcome, Andy. Really appreciate your time uh, talking with us here at the progressiverockcentral.com. And they're going to be releasing their album on K-Scope Records, one of my favorite labels, on April 8th of this year. And thank you very much. I'll let you say something and then we'll
My
jump right
pleasure,
into it.
Mark. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, we're pretty stoked about this record coming out. It's been a long time in the making. And you mentioned before we were on air that you listened to it and you really liked it. So thanks for the kind words. And happy to tell you whatever you need to know about this sucker. It's been a while. I think we started maybe about 4 years ago. When I got connected with Maya Wynn, who's the vocalist. So it's kind of started off a little bit slow, but we gained some momentum, and then this past year spent a lot of time finishing it up. So it's been exciting.
All right. We're definitely going to talk. That's all we're going to talk about is the album. But just real quick, for people that don't know you, just tell us a little bit about your past. You're the vocalist, bassist, or co-vocalist and bassist for Coney Hatch, which I think I told you is from the Cleveland. I don't remember hearing that band, but I'm certain that WMMS played them often. But
Yeah.
but go ahead.
Let me tell you a story about WMMS because Coney Hatch, which was formed back in 1982, that I don't really call us metal. I think we were more of a hard rock band, closer to an Aerosmith than we were to a Judas Priest. But the band started back in '82. I was the co-founder of that band, one of the vocalists. We had two vocalists, and we were signed to Anthem Records and had the same management company and label mates with Rush. And our very first US show was playing a coffee break at WMMS at 11 o'clock in the morning at
Oh, wow.
at the Cleveland Agora.
Yeah, Agora Ballroom.
Yeah, I have to tell you, Mark, that was a rude awakening. As a young rocker, I certainly had never played a show that early in the day. So we had lots of coffee into us. And I remember when we were driving across the border and we picked up a friend of ours in Buffalo who had arranged the concert for us. I said, "Who the hell's going to be there at 11 o'clock in the morning?" And he said, "You wait and see." And we played to a packed house. I still have a recording of that. But that ride with Coney Hatch, we were released on Mercury Records and Polygram for the rest of the world. So we did a lot of touring. We got pretty lucky at that time. We had a couple songs that were heavily in rotation at MTV, so that got us some pretty good tours. We did a really lengthy tour with Judas Priest in '82 on the Screaming for Vengeance tour. We did '83 Peace of Mind with Iron Maiden. Lots of gigs in between with bands like Ted Nugent, Cheap Trick, the Tubes, Edgar Winter, Peter Frampton. Like a lot of these bands were my heroes growing up.
Definitely.
So as a 19-year-old kid from Toronto, man, I was pinching myself through that whole ride. Lasted about up until '85. We did 3 albums, and kind of called it a day after that. There's a few member changes, and the sound of the band, Mark, had really strayed from my original vision. We were much more sort of rough and tumble at the beginning, and then the sound got slicker, more produced. And I think we just kind of lost our way. And like a bad marriage, the personalities were clashing. Many years later, we've all reconciled and we still play some shows. We're good friends, but
Good.
I moved on and had a solo career after that. I released an album under my name, just Andy Curran, here in Canada, and did very well with it. We got 2 Juno Award nominations, and I ended up picking up 1 Juno Award, which is kind of like your version of the Grammys.
Yeah.
Did some long touring with, and mostly in Canada, with bands like Kim Mitchell from Max Webster,
Yeah, I remember.
Rick Emmett from Triumph. So we subsequently, left that band, put out another record called Soho '69. did a tiny bit of touring with the, played a couple shows with King's X. That record label wasn't the most stable situation. Moved on to a publishing deal with Sony, which then got me a record contract with Geffen. I had a band called Caramel, and that was released maybe I think around 1998. We did really well at rock radio with a track called Lucy. Did lots of touring with Stabbing Westward, Econoline Crush, Creed, Brother Kane, bands like that.
Wow.
Then subsequently had a band called Leisure World, where we had a top 10 track called I'm Dead in the US, in Boston and Madison. And after that, Mark, I just, I kind of went over to what they call the dark side, and I did a label stint with Anthem as their A&R guy, and worked with SRO Management, which was Rush's management team. So did about 12 to 15 years with them, and that's kind of getting us close to when Envy of None started to take form after that. But that's a very condensed version of the ride that I've been on since 1982. It's been a lot of fun, man, and I feel pretty lucky that I'm still making music after all these years.
Well, thank you very much. That was excellent. Yeah, that Judas Priest Scream Your Vengeance is still probably my favorite. And the other thing you mentioned, let's move on.
Well, no, yeah.
You said some wonderful things there. Oh yeah, Triumph does not get enough credit, and it really bothers me. I love Rush. I've seen so many of their spring tours and so many of their tours in general. I mean, I'm definitely a Rush fan, but Triumph just gets left behind, and it's really a shame. They made
you're right. They are overlooked. They had a really successful run. Some of your listeners might remember them breaking out of Texas. That was their big break, and I think that at one point they ended up getting the keys to the city in San Antonio. But really nice guys, and excuse me, they were often overshadowed by Rush. But great band, had some really great songs.
All right. So I'm beginning to see the connection, how you met Alex and how you put this together, but go ahead and talk about that. And wow, what a lead singer. Maya is just unbelievable. Where did you find her too? And she has some Washington, Portland, Northwest connection. So
she does. Yeah. Well, the Alex connection, is worth talking about before I
Sure.
mention Maya, because we were label mates going back to 1982. We had met each other on a bunch of different occasions, mostly socially. And that chapter where I told you where I had left Coney Hatch and had my own band just under my name, we ended up being invited out to open up for Rush on the Roll the Bones tour. So in Canada, I think I did about 5 or 6 dates, in Ontario and Quebec, and it was really a special time for me as a kid growing up, watching Rush and loving them, to actually be in a band in a position to open up for Rush. So just amazingly super classy guys. I remember going into the dressing room and on the first show, and there was a bottle of champagne and a note there saying, "Welcome to the tour, Randy." Treated me with kid gloves. We had amazing run, and sort of got to be friends with Geddy and Alex over tennis and golf. Believe it or not, we played tennis, and Alex is an avid golfer, as many of you guys know, and sort of struck up a friendship there. But it really sort of escalated when I started working with their management company and their label, and really started working closely with them. But at no time, Mark, was I ever collaborating with them creatively. It was really just, I was their A&R guy and part of their label team, right? So there was never any discussion about that. And after Neil's passing, obviously I to this day, I keep in touch with Geddy and Alex weekly. We're very good friends. We're doing some fun things together with some of their new musical instruments that I help them with Fender and Gibson. But Alex reached out and had mentioned that he was writing some material, and would I be interested in playing bass on it. He had a couple ideas, and I was pretty, let's just say, I don't even know how to explain that day when that call came in. I was honored and maybe a little intimidated at the same time, but just like, what the hell just happened? In what lifetime am I going to get a call out of the dugout to play bass? So I jokingly said to Alex at that time, don't you know any other bass players? I think he got a guy on speed dial with his initials GL. And he said, no, Getty's busy. He's writing his own book. And I put down a guide bass on it, Andy, and I don't like it. I'm going to send it to you. And could you play some bass on it? So I was obviously honored, Mark. And so I put down some bass on a track called Spy House and also Kabul Blues, which at that time were instrumentals. We had not really even started to work with Envy of None. And so Alex was very thankful. And he said, hey, if ever I can return the favor, let me know. And I'd love to play guitar on whatever you're working on. So I said, well, it's funny you mentioned that. I met a really talented lead vocalist who lives in Portland, Oregon. She grew up in, I believe, Montana, but I got
I thought it
connected
was
with.
Spokane, but it
It
might.
might, yeah. I think it was somewhere. I think her parents are originally from Montana, but she spent a lot of time in up in your neck of the woods. But I got exposed to her when I was a judge for an online talent contest, and
Oh,
I was asked to do a sort of music industry mentor call with her. And it was during that call she asked if I would be interested in co-writing with her, which I wasn't expecting. I thought I was going to give her some advice on her career. So I sent her a few ideas, but I told her, look, these are nothing like Coney Hatch. These are not hard rock ideas. This is very sort of electronic, a little industrial, a little, ambient. And aside from the music that I play, Mark, I'm a big fan of bands like Massive Attack and Bonobo and Thievery Corporation. I love Nine Inch Nails. I love Depeche Mode. There's a whole other side to me. And I felt compelled to try to write that way just to stretch as a musician. So I sent her some seeds of some ideas, very short ideas. Most of them average between 30 seconds to 2 minutes at the longest. And I'd give her a couple little vocal lines and maybe a hint of a melody, being a vocalist and lyricist myself. And I'd send them across and I would say to her, have fun with them. If you like my lyrics, great. If you don't worry about it. If you like the melody line, use it. If you don't, make up your own. So the very first song that she sent back was Shadow. And that's on the Envy of None record. Yeah. So I ended up sending it to Alex going, am I drinking the Kool-Aid here? I think this woman's very special. And he listened to it and said, Andy, she's fantastic. I'd love to play guitar on this. And so I called in the favor, got him to play guitar on it. And Mark, I know it's an overused phrase, but it organically just started to build there. We went from 1 song to 3 songs to 6 songs. And it was only at the point when we got to 6 songs that Alex called me and said, what are we doing with this stuff? Because there was no label, there was no management, there was no nothing. We were just 4 musicians, myself, Alf Annabellini, who I've worked with a lot, it's an amazing mixer, engineer, but multi-instrumentalist. And Alex said, the stuff sounds very cinematic, Andy. Why don't we send it to a couple music supervisors? Some supervisors in Canada. So I did, Mark, and instantly I got a reply back about 48 hours after I sent some music out, and a young woman in Vancouver said, can we license Liar off you for a Netflix movie, a series that we're doing called Pretty Little Things. And so we licensed Liar to him. And I think that was the real pivotal middle change, where we went from thinking that we were composing some great material to getting a nice sort of shot in the arm recommendation and having a music supervisor go, I love this. This sounds amazing. And next thing you know, we're in this Netflix series. So it just kind of, at that point, we put pedal to the metal. And as I told you before we got on the air, this last year, especially with COVID, and we did this record up pretty much all remotely, sending ideas back and forth to each other in our studios, that it really sort of took flight. I've got some friends over at Snapper, the label that you said you really like, and sent them some music, and they got super excited about it, Mark. So we worked quickly to finish off the balance of the songs. We said to Alex, those songs, that Kabul Blues and Spy House, why don't we try some vocals on them? So Maya gave it a shot, and we added those and Western Sunset to it, which Alex wrote as a tribute to Neil Peart. And the rest is history, buddy. We finished this record off, and it's coming out in like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, it is astonishing album. It just really, most people probably would think, Alex is going to come out with something that sounds like Rush. This does not sound like Rush. Yeah, you mentioned Depeche Mode. There's one of those songs, and I commented on it in my review, that takes a lot of that kind of style. No, I'm not saying you're copying, but
Yeah.
you just blend so much together. And Maya, comes from that folkloric kind of
Yeah.
background that I don't know if it's Celtic, but more
Folk. Yeah.
folkloric. I can't talk today. Too early in the morning. Anyway, you have so much that all of you bring together to this thing. It just is astonishing, and
Thank you for
and
saying
it
that.
and it sounds brand. I mean, it's obviously brand new, but it just sounds new. It's thank you.
Well, yeah,
Thank you very much for that. Because
thank you for saying that.
everyone seemed, I mean, in the movies, you got people copying everything and bringing back, stuff from the past, but and I think Alex probably got into it because he was like, I don't want to do, the same, living in the limelight, whatever. I
Yeah,
want to do something new. And yeah, you
that's
get,
very true. I can tell you that he and I, it was quite liberating to step outside of our normal what's expected from us. And you're right. I think there's the Rush fans are going to expect Limelight or Tom Sawyer. That what they're going to go, great, this is Alex. But he really enjoyed not being stuck in that mold. And a lot of the guitar stuff that he wrote is very soundscapey. He talks about
yeah,
this dance that he does with Maya and wraps his melodies and sounds around her vocal. And she stepped out of her comfort zone because you're right. She is very sort of, I would call it almost folky Americana. If you leave Maya to her own fruition, that's what she's going to write like. So for the three of us, it was pretty cool to, as a musician, you get, I wouldn't say bored, Mark, but it is nice to just not have to do the same old again. So I love writing hard rock and I love playing in hard rock bands, but this was another itch to scratch for me, and quite a departure, and an enjoyable one as a musician to stretch a little bit. And I can tell you the same goes for Alex and for Maya.
thank God for that lady from Vancouver that spotted you and said, yeah, this is good. We need this in a Netflix
Yeah,
movie.
her name
And
is Natasha Duprinsky, and she was, I would guess, one of the earliest advocates of the band and the project. And it was just a vote of confidence, because
yeah,
sometimes, Mark, when you're writing, you kind of just drink your own Kool-Aid and you start saying, "Oh, wow, isn't this great what we're doing?" But the bird never leaves the nest. So once it's outside the nest and somebody goes, "Yeah, you guys are doing some cool things," it's definitely a vote of confidence. And that was the turning chapter for us, to really just roll our sleeves up and finish the record.
all right, let's talk about a few of the songs. Never Said I Love You. That's the opener, and it just really, if you're like you said, you're a Rush fan, you put this album on, you hear that and you're like, whoa. You're like, it not, this is terrible. It's like, oh my God, he's into this too. I mean, it was just,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think that one for me is like straight power pop. It's like it's very poppy. I think we didn't do this intentionally, Mark, but there's a sort of an 80s 90s alternative feel through some of these songs.
Yeah.
And by far, I would say the most commercial friendly, if you want to say radio friendly, it would be Never Said I Love You. Um, and it's one of the early tracks that we actually composed together. And it's funny, when we sent it to Alex, he was like, "This thing's done. I don't need to do anything to it." And we were like, "Oh no, yes you do. You need to
You
add
need
some.
that guitar. Yeah.
We need your stamp on it, right?" So he put on some really great acoustic guitars in the chorus that really kind of sparkle up the top end. And then in the middle, at the middle down section, he does some stuff that's almost like it sounds like steel string slide,
Yeah.
very vibey stuff. So we encouraged him to really, we literally said, Alex, please, we don't want to have a song on here that you didn't play on. But he was so impressed by where we had taken that song when we handed it off to him. At one point, Marquis was said, I'm not going to play anything on this. It's beautiful. So we bent his arm and got him to play on it. But I do love that track. It's going to be the next single of ours coming out on the street date.
I'm surprised that it wasn't the first, but we'll talk about the two that did release. You mentioned a little bit about Shadow, but who does the synthesizers or the keyboards? Because that song is fantastic.
That's yours truly. I've got sort of a setup at home that has a lot of old analog sounds from Moog synthesizers, or some people pronounce it Moog, I think is maybe the proper way to pronounce it. But that started off with a syncopated kind of trippy electronic blipping. And I sent it to Maya, as I said to you, and she was like, I like this song. It reminds me of a video game. So I was like, okay, if it's a video game, away you go. And Alex played a lot of backwards guitar on that. He's a big Jimi Hendrix fan, but he played some acoustic guitars and flipped them backwards. So it's hard, those on this record, when people listen to it, that they might go, where's Alex's guitars? Wherever you think that might be keyboards, it's a good chance it's Alex, and then there's some keyboard layering around it.
Cool. All right. How did you decide between Look Inside and Liar for the first single? They're both excellent, but go ahead.
Well, I think with Liar, we thought we'd like to come out of the gate kicking a little bit, and that song's fairly immediate. Like as soon as it kicks in, you've got distorted fuzz bass through it, and it kind of grabs your attention. And we wanted a song that maybe wasn't as up tempo as Never Said I Love You. We wanted to save that maybe for, as what they call the focus track. So everybody kind of liked the idea of Liar. Based on the feedback that we got, I think, it was a pretty good choice. We got a lot of positive feedback online, but the Look Inside one was very, it took us by surprise, because it's one of the band's or the project's favorite. And the label said, what do you think about going with this? And we were quite surprised, because it's kind of trippy, it's long, it's slow. And they said, we really feel like it gives a good a paintbrush stroke of what the music is like. So why don't we come out with Look Inside as a second track? And I think it made us love the label even more, because it was not an obvious choice. It's a bit of we call it our stoner lullaby.
And the videos are fantastic as well. You were smart in letting her do most of those, because she does a great job.
She's much younger and much better looking than all of us, Mark.
Yeah, I get it. Let's see. My computer's fuzzing up on me here. What are some of your favorite tracks? I mean, we've already kind of talked about it.
Yeah, we touched on Look Inside. I must tell you, I might be a bit selfish saying this, but I really like that track because of the bass line. I mean, the bass line's very, it's distorted, it's doubled, it's trippy. I played a Rickenbacker 4003 on it, and the bass line kind of leads the way on that. So selfishly, as a bassist, I'm like, yeah, man, the bass is featured on this, right? But for me, and I don't know why, but to this day, still, the track called Dumb is one of my favorites. I really like how we captured the vibe of it. It's very much, Alex told me it reminded him of like a Euro dance tune from the 80s, right? And there's a lot of rhythmic elements on the record, and that one really came together. All of the syncopated stuff that you hear going on, if you ever want to revisit it, put your headphones on, that's all Alex Lifeson doing guitars. It's very pulsating. I don't know what the heck he did in the studio to create that rhythm, but that one turned out amazing. And then I guess on a personal note for me, as a musician, I played fretless bass on Western Sunset, and I've never played fretless bass on a track in my entire career. Geddy Lee gave me Jaco Pastoria's Relic Fender custom shop jazz bass for a present one year,
Oh,
and it's one of my favorite bass guitars, and I've always been trying to find an excuse to use it, Mark. And so when Alex sent over Western Sunset, that's the bass that I played on it. So that's another favorite of mine, even though it's a short instrumental. The sentiment behind it and the fact that I could play, the bass that Getty gave me, and it ended up being about Neil, I found out many years later. So I don't know, those two in particular at the moment are my favorites, but it changes all the time.
every day. Yeah, Dumb is the one that I wrote, sounded a lot like Depeche Mode, but
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
yeah, I loved it. What I was going to ask you next is you kind of touch on With Enemy, and there's another song here, Cabo Blues, a little
Yep.
bit, war, and unfortunately we're watching a real nasty one
Yeah.
in Europe.
Yeah.
What are some of your thoughts and feelings?
Well,
I know I shouldn't get politics into it, but
no, I
how
think
can you not talk about it? It's in the news all the time.
it's
I know.
very topical. It's very topical, Mark. And I'm going to be really honest and transparent with you. We haven't announced it yet, but we're working on something to help benefit some of the refugees in Ukraine. And we're going to use our song "Enemy" as the vehicle for that, and to the details will come out in the next couple of weeks. But anybody that is a Rush fan knows that Alex has some Serbian connections, and this whole mess that's happening with Russia and Croatia, and it's such a tragedy. I never thought I'd see anything at this scale in my lifetime.
Yeah.
I don't know how he's getting away with it. And you and I could go on politically about this, but I just don't. I can't imagine that this in 2022 we'd be talking about people bombing maternity wards and things like that. So we're doing what we can. And as I said, the announcement will come out to try to help the UN. They've got some initiatives in the Ukraine that they're doing. So we're going to be donating all proceeds to it. But our song "Enemy," really the lyrical content of that I sent to Maya before the song was finished was really just trying to stress I'm not your enemy. It was more of a personal thing, from a one-on-one relationship thing. But her living in Portland, she told me there's been quite a lot of protests, and it's a very vocal city there, and she kind of put a spin on it. And she called me up and she said, "Do you mind if I put a bit more of a war theme to it?" And I started talking about Vietnam and the flowers and the guns with the hippies, which she referenced the flowers and the gun. We wrote a line about "Don't shoot our sun," but she had misspelt it SUN, shooting the sun out instead of the sun. But fast forward, it became very topical. So Maya called Alex and said, "What do you guys think if we could do something to help the refugees in Ukraine?" So I don't want to spoil it by telling you what we're going to do, but it's going to come out within the next week to week and a half. And I hope everybody's supportive, because we're going to do our best to do what little part we can to help those people out there.
Well, Canadians have always been wonderful. If I didn't live here, I'd probably be in Canada. And in fact, I don't know if you know where Bellingham is, but we're about a half hour to
Vancouver.
Well, to Vancouver, yeah. But anyway, what you guys did right after 9/11, I don't know if you remember that, those planes that landed in somewhere in Nova Scotia, and the people just took the people in. I mean, just everything that you guys do is wonderful, and I know this will be just as wonderful. Let's talk about tours, because I really hope you're coming to Seattle. But are you touring the world, or are you going to do the kind of spring training tours that Rush did, or is he kind of burnt out on that and he wants to do just one big
I listen, it's the number one question on all the interviews that we do. Are you guys going to tour? And the nature of how this project kind of took place with us really getting in the studio with no management, no label, and just kind of collaborating. And then it's kind of taking, off the runway. And now the logical question is, are you going to go out and represent it live? So I can tell you, you touched on it. Alex has spent, close to 50 years on the road. He's in no hurry to go back out there. I'm not far behind Mark, where I've got many, many miles underneath my belt on touring. And but on the flip side of the coin, both of us have told Maya and Alfio that if there was some opportunities to play handfuls of shows, we would do that. We've been approached by a couple, booking agents that want to represent us. Both of us agree that a lot of this material would probably sound great live, and we'd just have to figure out how to get all those guitar parts and keyboard layers in there. But so the short answer is we'll see. The long answer is we had never really planned on making it a touring thing. It was more a project and less a band. But I think, depending on how this thing is received, Mark, and if there is a want and need for it, I would say it's not out of the realm that we will tour for sure.
Yeah,
it's not a long one, that's for sure. It won't be 30, 60 dates. It would probably be more like a half dozen.
All right. Yeah, people forget that you're staying in hotels, you're driving,
oh yeah,
buses and all that.
It's
they
a
forget
grind.
how the poor artists feel. And it's just get there, we want to see the show.
Well, 2 hours on stage is highly rewarding. The rest of the stuff, not so much.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into that, definitely.
Yes, there is. Yeah.
And then jumping ahead, because you don't want to jump too far ahead, because it's a fantastic album. But are you talking yet about a sophomore album?
We are. We are. Excellent. Alex called me up and said, Andy, we're in quite a good groove here. We should maybe start thinking about Envy None Part 2. So full transparency, I've sent him over about a half dozen ideas already to get his wheels turning. But we had such a good time doing it, Mark, that we are talking about it. So I think, again, it's another we'll see. But right now we're all getting along really well and we enjoyed the process. So why not?
Yeah, probably, Maya's like, yeah, I want to get out on the road.
She's ready to go. Oh yeah.
I'm
yeah.
Sure. And why wouldn't you? I mean, it's fantastic. Well, let me just open it up. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk to that I haven't mentioned yet?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on, Mark. I really appreciate it. I'm super excited about the Envy and None project. I will tell you that I still do a little bit of moonlighting with my old band, Coney Hatch. As a matter of fact, our merchandising guy dropped this off the other day for us.
Oh, cool.
So this is the Live at the El Macombo recording that we did. And I'm going to still do some stuff with Coney Hatch, little dates here and there. But I've got my own website. I think it's andycurranmusic.com. So if you head on over there, there's lots of links that will take you to the projects that you and I spoke about, whether it be Leisure World or Caramel or the old music. So I'm living a double life right now. Envy and None's at the top of the list, but I'm still doing some of my old stuff. And yeah, just like stay tuned, man. The record Envy and None is coming out in a couple of weeks. There'll be a new video. The rest of the tracks that you've heard, everybody's going to hear them, and I hope they like them as much as we did. We really had a fun time making this record.
All right. Well, thank you, Andy Curran, for taking the time to talk with us today for the ProgressiveRockCentral.com.
My pleasure, Mark.
Looking forward to the album release and maybe the upcoming tour. Hope to meet you on the road. Good luck to everyone in the band and much success in your bright future. And tell Alex I said hi. Thank him for all the years that he created with Rush. All those tours, just there wasn't one that you would throw away. They were just fantastic. Every show was a masterpiece. I go way back to the 2012 tour. That was absolutely something, that whole album and everything about it. But definitely, thanks for all that you guys have given us throughout. all these years, and really appreciate your time and effort today. And it's early, and thank you very much.
My pleasure, Mark. And thank you for having me on, buddy. And you take care of yourself. And hopefully we see you when we're through Seattle, maybe even go to a hockey game together.
Well, there you go. Hold on just a second. I'm going to stop the recording and
Okay.
just goodbye. Thanks again, Andy.